Hello YouTube and welcome to this video. I hope you all had a great Christmas. I know I certainly did. In this video I wanted to share my experience running my first marathon. I ran my first marathon back in May of 2022 where I ran the Copenhagen Marathon. I was inspired to run this marathon because of two colleagues I had at that time. They were both deeply invested in weight training, but they decided to buy a ticket for the Copenhagen Marathon each. I had just left the military after my enlistment and was still running a bit in my free time. So I decided that I also wanted to buy a ticket. This was 6 months before the event. In the next few months we were in for a ride. I learned a lot about running and time management. It was very important for me that I had these two guys that were also training simultaneously. They did live quite far from me, so I did all my running by myself. But I still clocked into work 5 days a week where we could share our experience and give each other tips and tricks. This meant a lot for me and my training experience. Therefore, I would recommend for everyone preparing for a sports event to seek like-minded people who is trying to accomplish similar achievements. This way, training gets a lot more enjoyable because you can share thoughts with each other and get help past the difficult times that might come up. So huge shout out to Alexander and Lucas. I hope you're doing well. A few months into the training that occurred a problem for me. I got shin splints from an overload of running. In hindsight, this was almost guaranteed to happen. I was increasing the number of kilometers I ran way too fast, while I was also increasing the speed of which I was running. Every single run was like a speed race for me because I thought that would make me a better runner. In reality, it just made me injured. So I got the shin splints a couple of months before the race and I started going to a physical therapist. I was willing to do everything that he could make me do besides stop running. I was determined to complete this marathon. This was of course not the most reasonable idea, but in my mind I needed to complete that race. Looking at it now, I am also happy with the choices I made. Because of the physical therapist, I started strength training different parts of my feet and shins. At the same time, I replaced some of the running with cycling and swimming. Fun fact, this is actually the moment where I started doing triathlon. So with replacing some of the running with cycling and swimming, I could take some of the load away from my splints that came from running, but still keep training my endurance and cardio. This method did not completely heal the shin splints, but it cooled it down. From this moment forward, this was the way I was training up until race week. I was still running, but not further than 10 kilometers at a time. All the long distance training was on my bike, and most of the cardio training was in the water. Before the marathon, the longest run I had ever done was 24 kilometers, which was the training where I really got pain from the shin splints. So I was obviously not ready for that kind of training. But then the race day came. I drove with my parents and my brothers to Copenhagen, where the race would start at 9 o'clock. I chilled for a bit with my family and then we separated. I went into the area where the participants were. Now at this moment I was by myself. I was going to run the marathon completely by myself. I started casually warming up and doing some light stretching. I had told the people I know around me that my goal was to complete the marathon in 4 hours, but I had kind of a little secret goal because I knew if I gave it my all, I could probably finish in 3.5 hours. So if I was to complete this goal, I had to run a 4:59 pace per kilometer. The race started and I tracked my pace on the Garmin watch. I don't think there were any major crises throughout the race. I just kept running no matter how tired my legs were. Of course, my shins also started to produce pain, but after the halfway point of the marathon, I think that my brain just started ignoring it. My only focus was just to place one foot in front of the other. I used a lot of my focus on my hydration. I was drinking 1 glass of water and 1 glass of energy drink for each aid station. The aid stations were separated with about 4 to 5 kilometers. This actually went pretty well. The only thing that happened was that I got stomach pains, especially in the last 10 kilometers of the race. I think that was probably from all the energy drinks and a couple of energy gels that I consumed throughout the race. Before race day, I hadn't really experimented with the gels that I digested well and how I reacted to different kind of energy drinks. So this was definitely a lesson learned. You have to experiment a little bit with the kind of nutrition that you're going to use throughout race day. Towards the end of the race, I mostly remember how close the goal actually seemed when we hit the 40-kilometer mark. It was quite hard to believe that I only had to run about 10 more minutes before I was finished. Throughout the race, my family stood on the sidewalk cheering for me different places on the race. This was a very big help. Every time I saw them, I got a little energy boost, which made it a little bit easier to keep running. I clearly remembered seeing the finish line. There was about 500 meters left of the race, and I really started picking up pace. I had the last bit of energy left to use, and I started sprinting towards the finish line. I finished in 9 hours, 29 minutes and 8 seconds, which is the pace of 4 minutes and 56 seconds per kilometer. After the race, we went home and got some pizza, but I was so exhausted that I couldn't even consume anything. The next couple of days I had taken off from work, which was a very good idea. I actually got a little bit sick from all the exhaustion that I put my body through. So I would definitely recommend that you at least take the Monday off if you're running a marathon on Sunday, especially if it's your first marathon. It's just a nice little reward and a good way to actually understand what you just went through. The following months, I didn't run a single kilometer because of the shin splints. Obviously, the marathon made it much worse than it was before. I had to take a break from running for about 60 days before I could begin running again. In these couple of months, I just kept swimming and cycling and strength training just to keep the form. Running a marathon was without a doubt one of my favorite sports events that I ever experienced, and it made a huge impact on me afterwards. I do have to admit that my planning for this race was nearly non-existent, but I still succeeded and had a very nice day. So I hope you found this video entertaining and got some inspiration in your training and what mistakes to avoid. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And besides that, I wish you all a happy new year. I hope you enter the new year with a great evening and all the people that you care about, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.